by women, and very few people in England, Britain, even know that. So it's, we've got a way to go on that to redress some of the
Weren't we the
balance.
first country in the world to have a woman Prime Minister?
No, we weren't, were we?
Were we? Oh,
India with Indira Gandhi. Was
Gandhi, yeah. But you see, can I stop you there for a minute? Listening to both of you, the one thing the listeners have forgotten is that we're not their employers, we're not their employees, we're actually the politicians' employers. And they actually abuse us rotten.
I think that's absolutely right, and one of the issues closest to our hearts is about greenwash, the fact that the government is reaching for false solutions which are actually making things many, many times worse. And the name of the group that we're both in, Peter and I, is called Energy, Equity and Environment. And even just before this radio show, we were thinking a bit about the links between those three issues. And it's just absolutely horrendous the way the government is doing what it wants in terms of false solutions, which are actually making things worse. For example, biofuels. Biofuels is a classic solution, or not solution.
Mike, there's a website called They Work For You, but they don't work for us.
No, they don't.
Who they work for is very large corporations who have spent, I think they spent last year over £2 billion lobbying, lobbying politicians and ministers. And ordinary people don't have this ability to lobby ministers.
I think I'm not against politicians being lobbied by industry. What I am against is the corrupt, disgraceful behaviour that we've seen.
Yeah.
I had as you know, Tan, I had a radio show up north.
Yeah.
I got the plug pulled. Why? Because I really did go for the politicians.
Yeah.
And 2 years later the Telegraph announced or print about all their corruption.
Oh, what the...
It's a disgrace.
And this is happening even within Parliament. I went to a debate a couple of weeks ago, and it was actually called by an MP, and Nick Dubois, and the issue was, are MPs marginalised? And what we were hearing is that unless you wanted to be a career MP, or rather, because people want to be career MPs, they often are towing the party line, which is absolutely obscene when you think that, we use a lot of energy to put them in power, and then what happens, they're not really, and for an MP themselves to say this, I was very disheartened. But we do have people power, we do have power to make changes. And I think I read recently that one of the worst things you can do as a person is, because you only think you can do a little to change things, that you do nothing. And I see that all the time.
I don't think people have got the time at the moment to do something.
Well, it's not actually about time, I think it's about attitude.
I just think they rely on apathy, really. The fact that you think it's too big, but you can't change anything. I think people can change things.
I think you're wrong.
Do you think that this Occupy movement has highlighted this? Do you think that you've met any of these aims with the publicity that you've got?
Yeah, part of the thing, just to back up what's been...
there's been a lot of bad publicity, isn't there, as well?
There's been some bad publicity, but there's been a lot of good as well. But I think just to reinforce the point that's being made here, part of what we're saying is, when ordinary people, get off their bums and do something, they can, a lot of the people who are involved in Occupy do have jobs, and we are working.
Right,
so we've managed to find a bit of time to put into this, because this is something important.
You're not anti-capitalist, are you?
Well, as a whole, we decided not to accept the label of anti-capitalist, because we're quite a broad section of people. We do have political views, and we're open about that. And there are some people who are more on the left, and some people more sort of centre-left and centre.
You've got to remember that institutions that we have in this country bring in a hell of a lot of money.
You're talking about the stock exchange and the money market,
insurance,
speculators,
the metal exchange.
Yeah.
It's all based in London. Let's destroy it.
No, it's successful, isn't it?
What you're arguing about is the way the money, and we spoke outside the studio, the way the money is actually distributed. And I think, one
classic case of money not being distributed in a fair way is the fact that we're not even looking after our own old people in this country.
No, we're not.
I'm not sure if you're aware of the statistics.
Especially in England, of course.
Yeah.
And as I keep saying, everything is free in Scotland and Wales, but it's in England where the main problem lies.
Don't get old in England.
No, that's what I mean. No, it's true that the level of funding for old people in England is a lot lower than it is in Scotland and Wales.
Do you know why though? Look at the population of elderly people in England compared with Scotland and Wales and Ireland.
We have obviously we have the majority of population, but the latest statistics from Age UK say 2010-2011 there are actually 22,000 people over the age of 65 that have died. Excess winter deaths, they call them. That means people that have died really. Unnecessarily purely because of fuel poverty.
They get an extra £20 a month when it dips below 0 degrees, don't they?
That's obviously not going far enough.
Days.
Obviously not going far enough, and some people haven't even got decent insulation there. It's obscene.
Hold on.
I think
strange. I didn't know this was happening today about this discussion.
Yeah.
But my wife logged on to see what our quarterly gas bill and electricity, and because we're with a provider, and I'm not going to mention any name.
No, we can if you want. I mean,
well, we're with British Gas.
Yeah.
And our bill for gas and electricity combined was £106 for the quarter. Now.
That's really low, isn't it?
Yes,
that's not bad.
That's really low, isn't it?
Given that you're a multi-millionaire, Mike, that's pretty good.
Forget the wealth side of it, because even when you've got money, you still look after it.
Yeah, I know.
It wasn't that.
No.
5 years ago, I looked at my home and thought, hold on, we've got to look at this objectively, because I could see the future. And it didn't take. Everybody should have looked at it 5 years ago. And what we did was we had proper
insulation.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one thing.
Now you can get it free virtually.
Yeah. Right. And well, good.
Nothing's free though, is it? Somebody's always paying.
No,
it's not so well because
some local authorities will actually come in and insulate for free now. That's by far from being the case across the country. And this is a huge opportunity actually, because we can actually create a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
There's an organisation called Campaign Against Climate Change, and they've got a trade union group, and they've did a lot of research on this, and they said that we could create 1 million climate jobs. This is in insulating people's houses. It'll save energy. It will improve the quality of life for old people and prevent even many of them from dying and becoming ill. People working in the renewables industry, which is a huge area that can be developed in this country. It's a growing industry. Our country should be getting ahead on this.
I think we're actually wasting a lot of money on some of these renewable energies, and especially wind farms. You two may be not happy with what I'm going to say.
Go for it, Mike.
But
go for the joke.
We've probably got more rivers in this country than any other country in the world.
Well, yeah, for its size, yeah.
Lock them, and let's have turbines. You cannot see them. They don't destroy the appearance of the environment, of Mother Nature. If you lock the gate when the tide is low, then you've got water coming in to the lock, which is driving the turbines. You then open them up at top tide for an hour or 2 hours to let the traffic in and out. You then close the river up again and let it drain down with the tide. You've got energy being created the other way.
Wind farms are never going to be the answer, are they?
They're so expensive.
They don't work when the wind doesn't blow for a start.
Both of you, I wanted you to listen to this one. It was in 1987 the Colne Barrier was being built, and a group of us went to Essex County Council. We went to Anglia Water. We said, stop a minute, put the barrier across, let's have some turbines each side creating electricity. Go away, far too expensive. Now
and I think some of these renewables, surprisingly enough, will have start-up costs. Of course, it's a different product. It's going to have a start-up. It's going to take infrastructure. But if I can just mention a couple of things apropos of what you said. We certainly agree with what you say about tidal. I mean, the tidal's another unused potential there. Geothermal, heat pumps, wave power, and solar. And sadly, solar was just so taking off in this country that the government actually has stopped or reduced the feed-in tariffs. Why? Not because it wasn't working, but because it was working.
Do you go onto websites and see how much it costs to have
By the
these
way,
solar panels?
Mike, can I just interrupt you? I just want to ask you about that because the government tried to change that and they lost the court case, didn't they?
They did. They lost the court case because
Yeah.
they didn't wait for the consultation
Consultation,
period to
yeah.
actually be finished. You know,
Yeah.
how democratic is that?
I
Does
know.
solar work even when the sun doesn't shine?
Yeah, the new panels do.
Yeah.
The new panels
Photoelectric
do.
cells.
With,
they-
Yeah.
with
They
solar,
do.
yeah, the
Yeah.
technologies, technology is a point I'd like to bring in here because the solar panel technology is coming along now.
It is, yeah, it
You
is.
use them in the British winter, you know.
Yeah.
So people might sort of laugh about solar in the
Well,
UK.
it's
But is there no
Yeah.
subsidies? You can't get solar power like you can if you want to
You
get
can.
They've cut the
insulated.
subsidies, and there was a huge burgeoning industry. You know, when people were creating loads of jobs in this sector, and the government's just decided that they're going to cut this. The so-called greenest government ever. You know, they trumpeted themselves as being the
Listen.
greenest government ever. Can
Come
I
on.
just come to the
Yeah,
wind
yeah,
power?
go on.
On the wind power, you know, of course, it's only part of the mix. You know, the important thing
Boys.
is now. You know, just put this in a bigger
Perspective, yeah.
bigger context. You know, we've got a huge problem of climate change that's going to face us. You know, we're responsible for the generations that are going to come after us. We've got to leave a planet that's basically habitable. You know, and
Absolutely.
the International Energy Agency has said we've got basically 5 years now to avoid dangerous levels of climate change. So, you know, as you know, people in this country and people all over the world have just got to wake up to this fact. You know, the science is pretty certain now. You know, there are very few scientists, except for ones who are funded by right-wing nutters, if I can say that in the United
but-
States.
yeah,
I'm
it's
going to ask you a question. I'm
Can I
going to
just
ask
say about the wind turbine to
Yeah.
answer your question directly? You said that it costs a lot of money.
yeah.
And I said already before that obviously a new technology, a new infrastructure
It's
is
gonna
going
have
to
start-up
take money.
costs,
And
yeah.
further to that, I would like to mention, in case you don't know, in Texas of all places, they have got masses and masses of wind turbines. And do you know what? If you ask these Texan
Cowboys!
Texan wind producers or whatever,
Donald W. Bush! Yeah,
if
go
you
on.
ask them why, if you say to them, oh, this is environmentally friendly, they're actually, I've heard on detrimental, they're actually offended. They're saying, no, it's not because it's environmental, it's because it's cheap, it's because it's lucrative, that's why we're doing it. So the wind turbines in this country...
Do you have shares in them?
The wind turbines in this country, the ones that are offshore are, you know, massively developing at the moment. And some people say, oh, it's a matter of where they're positioned. And sure it is. But, you know, if you want something that's positioned, go to Didcot. Look at that power station and then tell me that that's worse
I'm not arguing.
tell me that that's worse
I'm not
on the horizon than a wind
I'm
turbine.
not arguing.
But wouldn't everybody
About
have to have one in their own
their-
back garden for it to make any use at all? The
Yeah.
amount of electricity they actually produce.
No, you know,
One per
when
four
it's,
houses
when it's
or
worked
something.
well is maybe when you've had one in a village and then they feel sort of a bond with it, if you like. They feel, oh, this is our wind turbine, and they feel this is good for us because we're doing this.
It's not. I don't want it in my backyard because I really don't mind
Good.
wind turbines.
What
When
about
I do
when the wind
object,
doesn't blow?
well, that's it. But hold
If
on.
it blows too hard?
It blows quite a lot in this country, you have to admit.
Yeah.
But
No.
And
you
especially offshore.
said technology when it starts is expensive, then the price drops. That's the inference. Well, it ain't. They've actually told us that the cost for each turbine is going to go up, and it is a willful waste of money.
That's one of the reasons their electricity is expensive.
That's
because
right.
They're actually putting it into
Yeah.
green renewables, aren't they?
to this turbine that is not successful, but water power is, and that's where we've gone wrong.
I think they're ugly
But
looking
can I
ones.
come back to you?
Of course.
You mentioned global warming, and it's one of my pets. Do you know how it started getting so bad?
With the
ahead.
industrial age.
When they wiped the Indians out in North America?
No,
No?
Bonfire night.
no, come on, stop joking, it's serious. Try over 6,000 nuclear tests.
Yeah, you know you're right. That's part of
Nuclear
it, yeah.
tests,
Yeah,
of course.
right,
It's,
yeah.
look at
The French, the British, the Americans and the Russians.
yes, Indians,
Yeah, Indians.
French,
The Irish.
Well, it's got nothing to do
I'm
with
joking.
sunspots or the sun's activity.
Pakistanis.
No. This has
I'm
been
a right-wing nut,
speeded up,
according to you.
speeded up by the 50s to the 80s.
Yeah.
of French Polynesia.
I know.
Over 6,000 nuclear
What about
tests.
all the volcanoes that go off all the time?
Sorry?
What about volcanoes? I mean,
No, hold on.
atmosphere.
You've got a bomb exploding on our little planet.
Yeah.
Imagine the energy being forced onto our
Mount
planet.
St Helens was the equivalent of
Hold on,
hundreds of
don't you think
Hiroshimas.
it's done any damage to our Earth's crust? Because
Yeah.
if you don't,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
got to be something wrong with your brain.
I don't think it's
These things,
damaging.
I don't mean to be rude.
These things, volcanoes and atomic tests, when they happened, because they were stopped, quite a long time ago.
No, they're still
But can I
testing
just
them.
finish? But they're nothing compared to the effect of millions of cars belching out fumes every day. Industry constantly, 24 hours a day, belching out
Well, look,
fumes.
if we stop in Europe and
over
England,
a period of hundreds of years and everything
I
like
know
that.
that mantra, all of it.
Well, we haven't had
But
cars
if we
on our
stop
own
in
for
Western
years.
Europe, what about the emerging places like China and India? I mean, they're not going to
Yeah.
stop that
We have
signing
to
up
get-
to this.
Costs
Yeah,
too much
Kyoto,
for it
but no, what we do,
And,
they're not going to sign up.
Yeah.
How many
But the-
coal-powered power stations are China
Hold
opening
on.
up
Yeah.
a year?
Hold on, our
How many?
presenter wants a word in here. Go on.
Just a reminder, we'll go back to India and China. Just a reminder to listeners that you can email the show at studio@1fmradio.co.uk, text 07986 137 239, 07986 137 239, and of course there's the usual links on Facebook and Twitter on FM. And anyway, as you can hear, we're having a very lively discussion about the environment and all the related topics. India and China, now their excuses, I wanted to interject here a little bit because China and in India for that matter are saying that, well, hang on a second, for the last 100 years you lot in the West have been polluting the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Right,
Now it's our
and
turn.
now it's our turn to get economic progress through these. That's their excuse. I mean, it's
And
kind
what-
of valid in a way.
One little known and very controversial issue, because people don't want to hear it, is that actually meat production causes an incredible amount of carbon dioxide.
Hold on, are you a
In
vegetarian?
fact,
No, let her answer the question. Are you a vegetarian?
Finish your point.
and thank you, moving on. So,
You're not talking about
They-
flatulence, are you? We're
No,
talking
go on,
about
let
Cow's
Zenith.
farting, aren't we?
okay, I'm going to sell myself here. So,
Go on, Zenith, go for it.
Carbon dioxide produced by the meat industry is actually as much, or if not more, of the whole transport industry put together.
Are we talking
So we're
about methane?
Absolutely, that's part of it, but also the transport costs. You're transporting cattle feed around, you're transporting the cattle around, and this is really something that is just
Hold on,
in the cupboard, because people don't want to hear it, and it's very, very much a case of we need to alter what we're doing.
Argentina, Brazil and Australia, I've been to, they're free-range cows. They're free-range beef. That's
It's not the point about it being free range.
methane from their little bits of toilet. What do we call it?
flatulence.
No, I mean the
Cow poo.
Yeah, cow poo.
Yeah.
Yeah, methane. I understand.
But
with
John,
both
as I
of you.
said, that's only part of it. Obviously, cow farts.
Cow dung. Cow dung, they
Right,
call
no,
it.
it's not just the dung; it's the actual flatulence. if you like to
Okay.
call
It's
that.
also about, it's an issue about
is-
the population, isn't it? Because you can actually, we've got a huge and expanding population on Earth, and you can feed more people with a hectare of vegetables, grains, or whatever, than you can with
Because you have to
cattle.
feed the cows.
Cool.
You have to
It's
feed the
not-
cattle, it takes up a lot
no.
more Earth.
My life would be
Actually-
boring if I don't get me fish
Are
and
you a
meat.
vegetarian as well? You're both vegetarians.
I'm vegetarian, if that happens. Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
No, I'm
Well-
a vegan.
I'm
vegan.
vegan.
Even
Well,
worse.
what's the-
Oh
can
my
you
God,
give me that word?
Zenith.
run out of the studio
That's
screaming.
That's
You
not
need
like a
to,
Vulcan.
because I myself get confused, but vegans, as far as I'm aware, vegans don't eat any dairy products either, am I
No.
right?
True.
Yeah.
Vegans, non-meat eating, non-fish eating, and non-animal products eating.
Like
so that
butter,
means
eggs.
no butter, no eggs, no
Yeah.
dairy,
No jelly. It's got gelatin in it. It comes
absolutely.
from
All
What
these
about
things.
milk?
Milk is absolutely not. So
no milk
basically,
either.
look, vegetarian.
Yeah, life would be boring.
Vegetarian, you're not consuming meat or fish, but otherwise you're eating dairy
What
and
an
egg
unhealthy
products.
diet.
But with vegan, let's get this straight, because not many people know this. A vegan is a strict vegetarian, i.e. also being vegetarian, but also not having dairy or eggs.
Yeah, but what a boring life. And what about your body? Can't you
Excuse me.
survive on?
Do
She
I
looks
look?
pretty healthy to me. She
Do
looks
I
pretty
look
healthy to me.
unhealthy?
Hey, listeners.
I'm surrounded by guys here. Do I look unhealthy?
Well, I'm going to be honest. You don't
Do
look
I look-
bad for your age, guys.
don't forget,
I'd get that in.
he's an actor, so
Nat,
just take him
do
in.
I look unhealthy?
No, you don't.
Do I look unhealthy?
You don't look too bad, girl, for your age.
So
Go on.
something, there are Olympic athletes, we've got the Olympics coming up this year, right? There are Olympic athletes who are vegans.
Oh, yeah.
This shows there are actually heavy weightlifting champions who are vegans. You know, it's a complete myth that you can't have a complete diet being
Paul
vegan.
McCartney, of course, he's a famous vegetarian, isn't he? Or a vegan.
Yes.
I went vegetarian once for a year, and then we went to a barbecue, or somebody was cooking a bacon sandwich, and that was it. And we had one. It's just like one, but it's not. It must be
I
like
think
crab.
meat
And I'm not
being
saying,
in
I'm not
moderation.
saying, I'm not saying that you don't have
But I
to be
was
careful
slim, I
about
was
what
very
you
slim
have.
then,
I mean,
but-
the classic ones are B12 and D and iron that you need to be
Yeah.
a little bit up to speed about. But then
Yeah.
a lot of
Oh.
meat eaters lack
Yeah.
in B vitamins as well.
Well, vitamin
And
D
I really
is-
enjoy my food.
Look,
Yeah.
what was just announced by the medical profession, that all of you, unfortunately normal people, because you don't consider me as normal because I'm a thespian, all you normal people don't get enough
That's a thespian,
sunshine.
not a lesbian.
I said thespian, not a lesbian. You don't get enough sunshine.
I mean, I know the
Doesn't it cause more
stereotype.
flatulence than vegetables? That's the thing.
Yeah, it does.
The
It certainly
stereotype.
does.
You know,
The,
screaming
the
farts all
stereotype of
day.
a vegan is the stereotype of vegan is weak, weird, and extreme.
Yeah.
I'm all of those, but I'm happy with it.
Well, don't forget cows are vegetarians, and look at the farts you get from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not weak. I'm not
It's
weak.
um,
There's actually a group called the Vegan Runners.
If we're not
and they're
supposed to
pretty
eat,
fit.
if we're not supposed to eat meat, why are animals made of it?
Why are
Come with that.
animals
Yeah.
that's a very
And another thing about
Work that one out.
another thing about the meat is that I think people genuinely don't know how awful the meat industry is. So if you go to CD DVDs called
I would
Meet the
imagine it
Truth
is. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
A
I
Delicate
know, I
Balance,
know that
you will
is terrible.
see that
We love it.
Do you remember the
Not only
TV
the-
programme I had on a year or so ago? Sorry to interrupt. Where they had an abattoir set up in the studio, and that was a real eye-opener, wasn't it?
Oh, for the chick, I saw one of the
Remember,
chicken.
they did the whole lot. They did veal,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
lamb.
Veal's cruel.
And people think it's just the killing that's cruel, and it's not. Often
No,
these
it's not. I agree with you.
for chickens, if they're not free range, the hens they're big.
But aren't they
beaks that
there
actually
for
move.
us to eat? See, I believe the animals are there for us to eat, but we should do it compassionately.
Well,
Yes,
that at
we
least would
should.
be one step forward.
With
I
a
mean, I don't
minimum.
think
I
they
mean,
are
we've got
those
halal
eating.
meat now. It's even
Do you know something? We're
more cruel,
actually,
isn't it? They don't
if
stun
you-
the animals.
if you travel around the world and then come back, you'll find that we probably kill animals. We're probably
Quite.
the most humane
By
country
now,
in the
yeah.
world.
But that's probably not saying much. And also, as I say, it's how they live. I mean,
Hold on.
people wonder. You asked about dairy. People wonder why isn't dairy all right? And I'll tell you, if you go, please go to a dairy farm, a proper dairy farm. Not, I mean, a improper dairy farm where the cows are very close together. Their tails might have been chopped out without anaesthetics, and of course their calf is ripped for them every year. And cows do have maternal feelings, so there's all that trauma going on, as well as constant pain on their
Did you
udders.
bring-
I think if
It
most
goes
people-
on and
Did
on.
you bring this subject up deliberately? Because Tan knows that our family had a farm and we were beef, but we never
No.
treated one animal cruelly.
No, I didn't know
I'll
that.
tell you what,
I didn't know that.
did round my
Yeah.
place, you'll get it.
But that's
Absolutely,
great,
but
because that's part
most
of it.
times,
But
I
at the
mean-
moment now, there's this huge farms
you know?
coming in.
No, I didn't know.
2,000-3,000 cows, and some of them aren't even allowed daylight.
But
it's also
it
thinking about
is
the climate
true,
change
yeah.
issues.
I mean, if most people knew how
Yeah.
animals are treated, you know, there've been a couple of really good films come out recently. Food Inc. is one of them, and Pig Business, about how pigs are treated.
Yeah.
And you know, if most people saw those films, you know, they'd actually understand this point. You know, animals, chickens, for example, are fed up so much
Oh,
that they can't
pellets.
even walk. They can't even walk. They lose their ability to walk around. They're just sort of sitting on the ground.
Did you know that
Yeah,
Australia,
lot of negative
announced
stuff, really.
Australia, and this is quite, you know, as Tan knows, we've got a home in Australia, so we're quite fortunate. We go there quite a lot. But did you know Australia a month ago has stopped exporting to Indonesia cattle because of the way they're
Yeah.
treated? And I admire Australia for that. They've actually
And what happens in
taken
Indonesia?
steps-
Can you just?
Oh, it's barbaric.
What do they do?
Well, they tie them with a tractor. They drag them about. They're still alive. They drag them about. They don't stun them. They slit their throats. I don't want to go into it. It's too graphic. It's disgraceful. But if you go to the BBC and then click on Australia, I'm sure you'll be able to pick up the get the footage that they showed you, and it was graphic. It was terrible.
And I think you raised a very good, a number of points that I'd like to contribute to. First of all, the transport, that's another very, very cruel area, you know, all crammed together, very, very tight.
I was with those in Essex 20 odd years ago, in the 80s, with them protesting about Brighton-Sea being used for shipping sheep to France. It was disgraceful. But it was the protesters that stopped it.
Well,
so protest has a benefit.
It works.
It does have a benefit. I think that's a really good point, and I think it's also that we, you know, I believe that we always have a choice. You know, we have a choice whether we can help or even if it's just a little bit.
We don't in this country. We're under dictatorship,
Well,
dear. Democracy's gone out the door.
That's what Occupy is about.
I know.
I think the point that democracy is not a real democracy anymore. I mean, one thing that we think about is that it's too centralised. You know, we think it should be far more. Devolution of power to local people, so that they can have more say over their own lives.
No, what we should do is we should have an internet forum thing that says, right, this is what we believe. How many people vote for it?
Absolutely.
And then that
referendums.
Yeah.
We need more referendums. Binding referendums.
Much more. We need much more temperature checks. That's what we call them in the occupation. So in occupation, if we're going to make a decision, not quite sure where it's going, then the facilitator asks for a temperature check. And then people will, even if it's a large group, they can show visually by, say, flicking their fingers that they actually want something or that they don't something. So then you get more and more
We're going in
information.
the opposite direction with the European Union. Everything's becoming central.
Oh no, the sooner we get out of Europe, the better. Blimey, that lot. Well, look at all the foreigners we got here now.
I'd like to take
And they don't even have. They don't even have. They won't have a referendum on that, would they?
Well, but they're not going to represent us. I don't believe.
If they'd had a referendum in the beginning, Mr. Blair and Mr. Wilson and Maggie Thatcher, if they'd all listened, we wouldn't have gone in. And it's very, very.
You know,
anyway, you would just have another referendum and another referendum.
I know. Well, look, let's. We're digressing slightly, but you know, when you say foreigners, I just want to balance up the argument a little bit because I got in trouble last time. When you say foreigners, you mean like the Eastern Europeans that come here and stuff like that?
I'm not against, and I hope no one's against, Polish people and Czech people coming here. They served our colours in the Second World War. They fought alongside our British soldiers.
Yeah.
Do you know, people don't realise that more Indian soldiers died in the Second World War than British soldiers.
Yeah.
Look.
Especially the Sikh regiments, they did a lot for the British.
They did. And as you know, Tan, I love India. And I love the people. No, I'm not being discriminant against East Europe. But I'm sorry, our little island can't cope. They're coming over here, doing jobs cheaper and putting British subjects out of work, and that I'm not in favour of.
Well,
we have to bring in some protectionism.
I think, just to balance that argument, I mean, obviously, don't forget, over the last few hundred years, you know, millions of Brits have emigrated to North America, Australia, for a better life, as economic migrants. So everything is like coming full circle, if you like.
It's hit us too quickly.
I know.
Too hard.
Well, I mean, that's I'm just trying to balance up the argument and say that obviously, you know, Brits have emigrated to other places and as economic migrants, you know, so it happens all over the world.
I want the people that deserve to be here. And part of those people, some of those people are our Commonwealth, and I think it's disgraceful the way we're treating our Commonwealth. Australians need a visa to come in, Indians need a visa, Pakistan needs a visa, Bangladesh needs a visa.
Yeah, but
it's disgraceful. They should be allowed to come and go as they wish.
Yeah.
Because they're a part of our world.
Yeah, but if you need to go to India, and obviously I know another country well, you need a visa.
Yeah.
So it works both ways.
Yeah, but it's governments.
Yeah.
Tit for tat.
I know, tit for tat. I know, it's tit for tat.
It's wrong.
I know. Well, migration is a very sensitive subject, especially on this radio station.
It's a whole new subject.
It is a whole new subject. We don't want to digress. We don't want to digress too much from the Occupy London movement. So,
but I think we do have things to say about migration as well, because you have to ask the question. You know, why do people leave their home country? You know,
they're driven out.
And there are several reasons why people leave their home country, but they might leave because there are wars going on.
Absolutely.
They might leave because their country is in a huge mess because of the way that the global economic system works. It's completely come in and taken everything. Big companies have come in and basically exploited their natural resources and their people and left them with nothing. So
Peter.
at Occupy, we're involved. What we want to do is not just highlight issues in this country, but Occupy is a global movement, and we're also looking at the global economic system and how that works these days. And it's run purely for profit. There's nothing.
And one thing about immigration that I would like to say is that, I've heard from a psychologist that I was acquainted with that she's a prison psychologist, and there was a lady in there that really she was coming at pain of her life to this country because she would have been killed if she stayed in her country, and then she was treated abominably. She ended up in prison and with her child taken away from her. And I think it's really, really important what we do with the people that really are the most vulnerable, most at risk. And I would like to see much more positivity towards them and protection of them and given a decent
Where's the
place to
money
live.
coming from?
Well, I would like to prioritise those.
I tell you, Mike, there's lots of money in the city. There's lots of money still swirling around the city.
You know my views on the city, they are essential.
Yeah. Well, you asked where the money's coming from. I just told you where the money's coming from. Yeah.
Some of your arguments I'm quite happy with. I'm not happy with all of them. But you're entitled, Peter, to your view. What I was going to say was, for several hundred years, the rest of the world has seen Britain as a bit of a police force for the world.
Well, that was during the Empire days, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've always, and I hope I speak for good, honest British people, we've always tried to be fair to other countries and help them get democracy. Unfortunately, the last 20 years it's backfired on us, mate.
And you can't force democracy on other people. There's one thing to educate them, but another thing
They're
to say,
entitled to
right, you've got to have democracy because that's the highest form of government that we see. And I don't like that. But I actually want to steer the conversation a little bit because something that we touched on was animal rights and also Indonesia, what animal rights would be there.
They ain't got any.
I agree on something.
Well, dogs and cats have more human rights than some humans in this country. They do, no, but
they eat
women in Indonesia don't have many rights either. They might know. Do they?
No.
So you've got animals, dogs, cats, and women.
And trees have no rights whatsoever. They just chop them down.
Absolutely.
Poor things. And we need them.
and trees have feelings too.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zenith, you go on.
Prince Charles.
Come on, order. The right honourable lady will speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one thing that's happening in Indonesia is big companies are going in there and they're basically chopping
Based
the
in the
rainforest.
city of London.
They're
Based in the city of London, on the London Stock Exchange, right?
Yeah.
That's why we were
Are
there.
you referring to
Some of them.
Baltic
And
timber?
they
Is there
are
not?
They are chopping down rainforest trees and planting palm oil in its place.
Yeah.
Now, palm oil is in probably, lots of foods, lots of soaps and washing products. In fact, it's in so many things it's difficult
Spreads.
sometimes. Yeah,
Well,
loads of things.
you-
And
Mike, let her finish, please.
the thing is that in cutting down the rainforest, you are obviously, as it says, the words are on the tin. You are cutting down the rainforest, which is exactly what we're not supposed to be doing. So where's the accountability for those companies that are doing that? And you might not know this, that nowadays, as if it's not bad enough our consumption of palm oil as it is, the new insanity is that the companies are proposing to build biofuel power stations. So that would be using palm oil. That means that we would have power stations actually using palm oil. So this is vastly increasing the use of palm oil, which we already know is causing massive deforestation. Anybody knows that deforestation of the rainforest is one of the most stupid things we can do at the
We
moment.
all agree with that.
We
Yeah,
absolutely
I think
And
you're
we
being
all
a
agree
bit
with that.
unfair
So-
to Britain. Britain is the only country in the world that has
But-
banned mahogany
Yeah.
So that's a
being
good.
brought into...
Right.
Yeah, but Mike,
Okay,
what
so
she's
that-
saying is it's not actually the government, perhaps, it's the multinationals, the big corporations,
Yeah.
the hedge funds, the
What-
the speculators
That's
that
the
cause
point,
the
they're
problems.
outside
No,
democratic
actually,
control.
what I'm saying,
They're outside
is-
democratic control, and that's the important thing.
Yeah.
You know, that we're occupiers here to talk about democracy, and we have large companies here.
Well, name and shame.
Many of them based in the city of London.
Feel free to name them, Mike, you can
will,
do
that's
that.
what-
Well,
yeah.
You can name on the show, don't worry about that.
I've been actively forming campaigns against biofuel power stations. One, because very, very few people even know about it, so I've been very driven to do something about this and raise awareness. Specifically, I've worked on power stations in Southall and Newport in South Wales and Bristol. And in Bristol and Newport, I've worked with others to raise awareness and form huge local campaigns. And we have one in Southport and Newport. We have actually stopped these power stations. Now, these power stations, not only would they cause havoc in the rainforest, they would also cause massive local pollution. So again, in a time we're supposed to be looking forward to helping the environment, we're actually allowing these companies and the government in cahoots with them to build power stations. Now, the government, it's not just the companies, because the government would be supporting these companies to the tunes of millions and millions of
But
pounds
you're
per
against
hour.
nuclear energy. You know, nuclear energy is actually very green.
So the
That's a myth. That's a myth.
so let's get this
Zenith,
straight.
before you answer the point, can you just remind listeners of the various websites that you mentioned before the show, just so that people
Yeah,
can get the
absolutely.
information?
One of my weblogs is www.lifewithoutpalmoil.org. That's lifewithoutpalmoil.org. And there you'll see the latest on the state of what's actually consultation at the moment, that the government is having a consultation about whether or not we should give subsidies to these power stations. So here is your opportunity, listener, to get up to speed on this foul subject.
And Biofuels Watch, maybe.
Yes, and also www.biofuelswatch.org.uk. That they've got a lot of information on this subject. And so that's one of my websites. The other is called wearethechange.com. It's just started off, and your contributions to that of ways that you and other people make positive changes are very, very welcome.
That's a good website, wearethechange.com. That's
Yeah.
catchy
Can I
name.
mention just generally, because we're sort of coming towards the end of the show as well,
Yeah.
if people want to find out about Occupy London in particular, we have a great website, and you know, most people just hear it, a few, you know, read an article in the press or whatever. We've actually got lots of information up on our website, all the different statements that we've passed and brought out and discussed, all the different events that are going on, because we're still, you know, one big thing we're doing at Occupy is that we're putting out ideas that are not out there otherwise, or you know, don't get across to the
through the normal media.
We've got educational activities. We have professors of economics coming in and talking about finance. You know, we've got our own newspaper called the Occupied Times. You can look that up on the web as well. The Occupied
What's
Times.
that website with the
Well,
Occupy
it's
London?
not owned by Murdoch.
Certainly not.
God,
It's
blimey.
not. Now, go on,
Occupied Times. Yeah, I think you just have to do a search. I can't remember the exact
You know-
URL. But Occupied Times London, you'll find it very easily.
Yeah.
Our main website for Occupy London is occupylsx.org.
Oh, okay.
And that's where you'll find timetables of all our activities, what we're doing, what plans we've got, what our policies are and everything. Because quite often people say, oh, well, you haven't got any, you know, what's your alternative?
Yeah.
And actually I've just got a big wad here of statements that we've brought out. Statements on the corporations, economic statement, I've got pages and pages of stuff that we've passed.
Right.
For example, closing down tax havens, you know.
Yeah.
Tax havens are a way that companies use to avoid paying their fair share in society.
Politicians and all, Ken Livingstone.
Yeah.
Politicians as well, but loads of
Mike
companies,
Parrish.
you wouldn't need.
I'm only joking.
I pay my taxes.
Yeah,
mate.
Ladies and gentlemen
Yeah, go
listening out there, dear listeners, you wouldn't need any cuts, right? You wouldn't need any cuts if we closed down on tax avoidance and tax evasion in this country,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't need
I
any
agree
cuts.
with you there,
wouldn't
yeah.
need any
I
cuts.
wonder if you
That would
would-
probably raise several billion pounds, wouldn't it?
yeah, but hold on.
Absolutely.
It's
More than
easy.
that.
It's easy sitting there and saying these things, but I've known several people that Peter had your attitude until they got some money, and then they joined the rest of them tax evaders. So you know, let's
Well, that actually, sadly, is a good point. Some people start off a career with very good motivation and then end up in a bit of a mess. So I just want to say, as regards positive solutions, I was actually referring to MPs when I thought of that. Sometimes people might start off well and end up,
going.
I don't know whether they ever start off well. That's not.
So another possibility for Britain that I haven't really heard many talk about, that I've heard about because I'm half Norwegian, is that from Norway we're already importing 2 terawatts of energy. And there's a potential for much more, given appropriate backing from the government and Europe. There could be several terawatts, maybe 10 terawatts, because at the moment there's a 17 terawatt excess electricity in Norway. But this is where it gets very dark again, because it's actually the government's group, Ofgem, that is actually
The regulator.
Ofgem is the regulator, and they look at whether renewable energy is renewable energy. So basically, whether or not they think it should get the subsidies. But they've actually just stopped. They've come to a stop after importing a vast amount of energy from the Norwegians, which would be green power. It would be from small-scale small-scale rivers without dams. Then instead of going for this, they've actually pulled out. So this is a mystery. Why stop when the going's good? So this is something about government. We want to know what's going on. Yeah, I've asked them.
Well, one thing's for sure is that there's a lot of lobbying from the big oil and companies, and these big energy companies, Shell and BP. You've
got to remember they try to stop the electric car.
Exactly, they have massive influence over government. We should have back to the democracy point again.
Yeah, I mean, we should have had the electric cars in years ago, really. They had the technology and they're only just coming in now.
They've had the technology since Sinclair and his little buggy.
C5, wasn't it?
Yeah.
C5, I remember that.
You see, it's easy for corporations.
You can still buy them.
It's easy for corporations to build up, to snap up patents of what would be more environmentally friendly issues. That's another thing that can be looked at.
I mean, John, you was going to ask them questions regarding the homeless
Absolutely.
All right.
Before you two disappear, I'm going to tell you something.
Go on.
My wife and I, up until 2000, have owned nightclubs and restaurants, and every Christmas we used to throw Christmas parties for
go on.
Every Christmas, what was left was nicely done up, and we drove all the way from Surbiton to South Bank to give homeless people food. And we did it. We did it because it would have been trashed in a bin.
Yeah.
What a willful waste of food.
Well, apparently we waste around, even ordinary people waste around 20-25% of their food. I mean, we all do it. We're all guilty of it.
I mean, this is obscene. There's about 20 or a third of food is trashed.
Yeah.
And also that brings me around to another bugbear of mine, is all this packaging. It's just obscene.
It's unnecessary, a lot of it.
Is unnecessary.
It is unnecessary.